This week we're going to be tasting an amazing natural, but it's from Kenya. We're going to be looking more in depth at what natural processing is.
My name is Steve Layton, and I travel the world finding amazing and delicious coffee for you to drink at home. Some make coffee difficult to understand and complicated, but here it's my job to make it easy and fun and tell you what's in my mug.
So the Chinga factory is located near the town of Othaya, just east of the Chinga Dam. It's approximately 5 kilometres or so southwest of the town and is in the Erie County, which is part of Kenya. They're part of a larger cooperative which is called Othaya, and they run quite a few of these different factories, but Chinga is the only one that we've been working with. Chinga has 782 members, 587 male and 195 female, and each member owns a small piece of land, normally around about 0.3 acres, that they harvest themselves and then sell it to the mill. And as members, they are part of that mill too, where it's processed and then sent normally to the government auction. The project part of this coffee was that we asked them to specially do us a naturally processed batch, which they either kindly or stupidly agreed. But as long as we promised to buy the coffee regardless of its final cup, which we've now done for 3 years. And in the 3 years of buying this coffee, for me, it just keeps getting better and better. They're perfecting their naturally processing skills and generally paying more and more care and attention to the coffee. So we're going to do a cupping, and I decided to do something exciting here. So we've got the natural from Othaya, that is this week's coffee. And to the right here, I have the washed version of it, which is a completely different cup. So it's really looking at the processing differences. So let's get some water. I can press buttons. So what we're going to do, we've got 12 grams of coffee. I'm going to add water filled up to the bowl, which is around about 180 mils of water. We're going to leave it for 4 minutes, and then we're going to break. Maybe we could play some lift music while this is going on. So we're going to put you on pause, come back in 4 minutes. That was a quick 4 minutes. And interestingly, while you were away, I broke them and cleaned them off. And as I broke them, I actually realised I'd got them mixed around the other way. So this one is the natural and this one is the washed. How do I know this without cupping them? Well, it's just so obvious in the smell. The natural has this such a unique aroma when you smell the grinds and when you break it, that it was just very clear which one was which. So let's start with this natural that I've just swapped around. And straight away, this is a unique Kenyan. I have not tasted a Kenyan like this. It has blackcurrant, which you expect from a Kenyan, but it's almost like it's been smoked. So you get a fish that's been smoked or bacon that's been smoked. It's like a blackcurrant has been smoked. It has a really sweet pipe tobacco taste to it, which sounds not pleasant, but actually is super pleasant. I really like it. It's just such a confused coffee. You have all of these different flavours going on in there that you know it's a Kenyan, but it doesn't taste like a Kenyan. So let's go into the washed one. And in the washed one, completely different, but very similar. So you end up with a cloudy lemonade, and the best descriptor I've found for it is it's like a lemsip. Now, lemsip sounds such a negative descriptor, but actually it's a really positive one because it's that sweet lemon kind of drink flavour to it. But it finishes off with the blackcurrant that's in here as well. So you can actually see that these two are related, but they've definitely got a different mum or a different dad. This is a little trick that Alejandro Martinez from Finca Argentina taught me. You should always water your coffee plants with a Chemex. Helps them grow better. So this week, Farmer Layton is going to take a look at the difference between a cooperative against a factory. So a cooperative is a group of factories that process the coffee using their pairing numbers to make sure they market themselves the best, but also have access to the ability to process and to dry mill the coffee. Most farmers will have anything from a few hundred trees to maybe a few hectares if they're very lucky, but being very small growers. Using this system means they get the best out of the system. A factory is a satellite collection station that will do the wet, or in this week's case, natural processing before delivering to the cooperative. The factory managers and chairmen are super important, as at the factory they will have the most influence over the processing. So as we've said, natural processing is not something that normally happens in Kenya. So it's kind of a really good opportunity to show you the processing video for natural so we can understand it a little better.
Hello, and welcome to the second in the coffee processing videos we have done. And today we're going to be looking at natural, or sometimes called dry processed coffee. Cherries are picked from the trees and cleaned. They're cleaned so the producer can separate the unripe, overripe and damaged cherries and remove dirt, soil, twigs and leaves. This is often done by hand using a large sieve. Any unwanted cherries are picked out from the top of the sieve. The coffee cherries are spread out in the sun, either on large concrete or brick patios or on matting raised to waist height on trestles called Indian raised beds. As the cherries dry, they are raked or turned by hand to ensure even drying and prevent mildew. This can have a big effect on the final taste in the cup and stops an over-fermentation of flavours. It may take up to 4 weeks before the cherries are dried to the optimum moisture content, depending on the weather conditions. On larger plantations, machine drying is sometimes used to speed up the process after the coffee has been pre-dried in the sun for a few days, although this is rare. The drying operation is the most important stage of the process since it affects the final quality of the green coffee. A coffee that has been over-dried will become brittle and produce too many broken beans during hulling. Broken beans are considered to be defective beans. Coffee that has not been dried sufficiently will be too moist and prone to rapid deterioration caused from attack of fungi or bacteria. The dried cherries are then sent to the mill. This is sometimes done on the farms, where hulling, sorting, grading and bagging can take place. All the outer layers of the dried cherry is removed in one step by the hulling machine. The dry method is used for about 90% of Arabica coffee produced in Brazil, and most of the coffees produced in Ethiopia and Indonesia. Almost all Robustas are processed by this method. It is not practical in very rainy regions where the humidity of the atmosphere is too wet or where it rains frequently during the harvesting. And that's it, naturally processed coffee.
People coming up. We're not go up on the stone road, I used to call Patrick. So it's like if you went in there. Oh. Oh, right. Yeah, there's some of them that I feel like you do a little bit more. So I'm joined by Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Steve.
Chris does all the work here, and like to get him on camera, I literally had to drag him away from his desk, kicking and screaming, because he doesn't like any of it. No, Chris is the brains of Has Been. He makes everything tick over. When you email in, you probably speak to this man. So be nice to him, because he's a nice man. And you've chosen the way that we brew the coffee today, and you've chosen something unusual.
A little bit unusual, yeah. So every morning I come in, I brew bulk brew pots for everyone in the building.
Yeah.
One for the roastery downstairs, one for dispatch as well. Keeps everyone going, ticking over, 4 litres at a time.
And it's amazing. So dispatch, and you met like Kay in an earlier episode, and some of the others. They weren't coffee drinkers, and you're turning them into coffee drinkers by brewing these for them. Everybody's started. I mean, they've got through 4 litres this morning.
Slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely, we're converting the world into coffee. And it's convenient because for the roastery, they can't stop roasting, but they can lean over and get some coffee from it.
Timmy's always got a cup in his hand all day long.
Yeah. And it's like every coffee system flawed, but it's one of the most consistent I find to brew
big amounts of coffee that are going to taste good every time. And it's so often overlooked. And I was so pleased when you said this, and you were kind of half joking, but actually I think it's great. This is a perfect way to brew for big teams and big people. And
I reckon when you walk into a coffee shop as well and they've got blog rooms.
Oh, I'm so happy at that. I'd much rather have that than somebody make me a really bad AeroPress.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's dive into the coffee. And I've been talking about this all the way through. We had Roland on earlier talking about this coffee as well. And for me, it's black currants, but it's smoked black currants. It's rum raisin, so rum raisin ice cream. Really boozy. And I love this descriptor, like alcoholic Ribena.
Alcoholic Ribena.
And I've never had alcoholic Ribena, but I'm going to try and make some tonight. I think I'll just put lots of gin in with Ribena and that'll work well, won't it?
Ginbina.
Ginbina. We're creating words as we go. It's super confused coffee, but I love it for that. I absolutely think it's amazing. It's got big bass notes and yeah, it's really good.
Very, very delicious.
And Gary John, who runs the factory in Chinga, is a giant of a man. And he's a man of very few words, but like he's made an amazing coffee. He has spoken to us through cups. And yeah, he's the one that did this natural processing for us and super pleased of it and very happy to have it. Chris, thank you for joining me. I know this is uncomfortable for you, but people out there will be very pleased to see the face behind the email. I'm very pleased to get you on and talk to the people. And do remember, life is too short for bad coffee. So as we